Today I'm talking about my thought process for success. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the 11th episode of Ballin with Spauldin. I'm Justin Spaulding. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video. Please ask a question, leave your comments. We'll answer your questions in future episodes. And really my thought process for success really begins with a vision. And I can envision myself completing something and being successful in whatever I'm pursuing before I even start. And I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know any of that. But I just envision myself having that success, the ultimate success, that reaching that ultimate pinnacle no matter what, every single time. And you think about my next thing, and my next thing that I'm really big on, well, the next two things that I'm really big on are showing up. That's huge. To be able to just show up every single time, no matter what. Because by showing up, you've already beat 90% of the people. So I'm going to show up every single time. But then some people just say, hey, show up and you're going to win. But I take it a step further and I say, always show up and always put in work. Because there's a difference between just showing up and then also putting in the work that it takes while you're there showing up to get to where you want to be. If you show up, you're going to beat 90%. If you show up and work, you're going to beat 90 plus 9%. So you're going to beat 99% of the people by showing up and working. Really another thing that I would definitely put on there is learn from what you're doing right now. Like as you start to go through the process, really learn from the things that you're doing. Learn with what works. When you're experimenting with things and when you're trying stuff out, and it might be a new venture for you, okay? A lot of times there's already a path that's been blazed for you and you just have to follow down that path. But in certain different aspects of real estate, in certain different aspects of starting your own business, learn from things that you're doing right now. Feel free to experiment in something like real estate and how you manage your tenants or how you manage your buildings or how, what you're going to remodel. Experiment with stuff and you can learn. A great example of that is one of these next apartments that I'm going to flip out is one of these next apartments I'm going to flip out. I'm actually going to, instead of putting carpet in, I'm going to put a hard floor in. It's going to cost me a little bit more, but you know what? I'm going to experiment. Maybe that apartment will be in more demand. So I'm going to learn from that experience. So really learn from what you're doing, but also learn from others, right? Because a lot of times there's successful people that came around before you in the same thing that you're doing. Learn from them. Take their advice. Don't just sit down with them and not try their advice if it's working. Implement some of the things that they're taking. Another great way to do it is you can read books on things that people have done in the past. Now the next two things that I'm going to kind of talk about here are going to go back to the vision, but yet it's kind of two different steps. So a lot of times, in fact, I think everybody can. Not everybody, but most people can kind of get the thinking big down. They can, or they look at someone else's life and they're like, man, I wish I could do that. And then maybe they get to the point where I can do that, I can do this. And they have these huge goals. They state these big, audacious goals, which is great, but they're brand new. And what happens is they get so caught up in the big goal, the ultimate goal of where they want to be, the biggest picture, the biggest goal, they just spend their time just sitting there daydreaming, and that's not what it's going to take, because you really got to have a split vision on this. And so I'm going to look at the camera like this right now, but if you take one eye, okay, so my right eye, if I take my left eye, my right eye is going to stay on that big vision, all right, all the time. So I'm going to have one eye on the vision and where I'm going, the big ultimate goal and my ultimate dream. But then this other eye has got to be down in the nitty-gritty details and the work. And too many times people get caught up in that big idea but don't get to work. They don't start taking the small steps to get there. And a great way that I like to put this into people's minds is when you're flying an airplane, right? When you take off and you're 10,000, 20,000 feet in the air, you can see the big picture, right? And this is real easy to put into picture for you in terms of real estate. Because when you're up that high in the air, you can see all the real estate, and you're like, man, if I just had that much of it, I would be a billionaire, right? And so you see all this real estate, that's the big picture, that's the big goal. But then you zoom in when you zoom into the micro level of it all and the work that needs to be put in, maybe you have to change out a window, and this window's giving you hell, and you can't get it out. right? And you're struggling with a nail. That's the micro, right? And so many people just give up or don't even start changing a window. So you got to be able to have that big vision, but then you also got to be able to get down in the details, and don't waste your time on anything but those two things, ever. Don't waste your time on listening to people tell you can't do something. Don't waste your time on someone telling you, trying to drag you down, whatever it might be. Do not listen to any of that. Do not waste your time on the thing that's not getting you to your big picture. So don't waste your time. Just be the big picture. Think about it. Vision it. And then get to work. So now I just want to use my story and how I've kind of implemented all this so that you can have some, a little bit of practicality to this lesson. And really my vision started when I was 19. I saw, the Trump Tower going up in Chicago, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. And previous to that, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to play professional sports, right? And was actually thinking about being a PE teacher when I was growing up, or a science teacher, or, whatever. And I decided that day when I saw that building, I wanted to do that because it looked cool, it looked fun, and I got excited about it. And so what happened was I had this big goal. I had no idea how I was going to get there, but I was reading all these books of successful people and what they were doing in real estate. And so finally it came to my turn to invest $5,000 into a deal, and I did it. And they started paying me through college an extra, $50, $100 a month. And I'm like, man, this is really cool. How am I going to be able to get enough money or, get the skills and have enough money to then invest in more property to live the life that I want to live? And I really realized I needed to start a business that was going to pay me so I could take those profits and invest them, right? So I had this big goal, and I started to implement, realize what I had to do in the micro level, what I needed to do for work every single day to get there. And I got involved in a company, and part-time started making an extra $500 a month. I started making an extra $5,000 a month, $8,000 a month. And really what it allowed me to do was save. So that was, once again, I had a big eye on the goal, but I had to save for a purpose. That was the doing part, which was hard at the time because my friends were making $40,000 a year in a salary or $50,000 a year. Well, let me tell you what, that first year total between all the different things I was doing, working a ton of hours, I made $12,000. And that was kind of, when I got to that point of that year being done and I only made that much, I was a little bit defeated. I'm like, this sucks, and it was hard. But I look back and I'm like, man, I put in a lot of hours that aren't going to pay me today. They're going to pay me in the future. They're going to pay me on year 3. They're going to pay me on year 5. So I was doing all those things, day-to-day basis, not getting paid for it, all the micro, little level stuff with my eye on the big picture. Year 2 rolls by, I'm putting in a ton of work, and I'm getting super frustrated. When I got frustrated, I would look back again and see all the work that I put in that was going to pay me in the future. Year 2 paid me like $25,000 total between everything that I was doing. And it just started growing. Year 3, year 4, year 5, and year 6, it's going to be well into the 6 figures total, everything that I'm working and doing. And it's kind of crazy. But that's really how I can kind of put this lesson into play, is that it's not always going to be easy. I had to ignore a lot of people and not waste my time. I spent all my time with my vision and my big idea. I spent all my time while I had my eye on that. I spent all my time working and figuring out the small little steps that I needed to take. And it's kind of like a game of chess. And that's what I'm playing right now, is a game of chess. I'm betting on myself for the long haul. And now I'm kind of ranting and stuff, but bet on yourself for the long haul. Anything that's worth doing isn't going to happen, overnight. So you're going to have to, now it's not going to happen next month. It's not going to happen 2 years from now, maybe, depending on how big your goal is. And so really realize and bet on yourself for the long haul. Okay, and I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in to the 11th episode of Ballin with Spauldin. Please share this with anyone else who that wants to build wealth, because I want this to be a wealth building community. Leave a question for our upcoming episodes and I'll answer them. Thanks, guys.